In the silence of the early morning before the world begins to move, there is a sacred space, a space that only you can fill. This is the moment where discipline meets intention. This is the birthplace of mastery. And within this space there lies a habit, simple yet transformational, intentional stillness. Each morning, before distractions pull your attention, before obligations claim your energy, you must sit in silence, in stillness, not to waste time, but to gather your time. Most people rush into their day like a warrior with no armor, no clarity, no awareness, no purpose. But those who dominate their reality begin with a different ritual. They return to themselves every single morning. So what is this powerful habit? It is the practice of mindful morning stillness. 10 to 15 minutes where you do nothing but breathe, observe, and prepare the mind. It may sound small, even insignificant, but understand this. The strongest warriors do not begin with chaos. They begin with calm. The sharpest minds are not fueled by speed. They are sharpened in silence. Why is this so powerful? Because the moment you choose to master your morning, you stop living on autopilot. You stop reacting. You begin creating. When you step into the day from clarity, your actions are aligned. Your thoughts are focused. Your purpose is strong. And when the mind is focused, results accelerate, not by force but by flow. This is not about motivation. It is about discipline. This is not about doing more. It is about being more. Each morning, ask yourself, am I leading my mind or is it leading me? This question alone will change the trajectory of your day and eventually your life. So if you want to 10x your results, stop searching for hacks. Start mastering your mornings. Sit. Breathe. Return to yourself. From this stillness, everything else begins. In the ancient traditions of martial arts, the beginning of each day was never rushed. The master would rise before the sun, not to conquer the world, but to conquer himself. This practice of beginning the day in stillness, in silence, was not merely ritual, it was preparation for life itself. Morning stillness is not an escape from responsibility, but a powerful act of taking full ownership of one's internal state before facing the external world. Before the noise of the day arrives, notifications, meetings, tasks, demands, there exists a brief window. In this window, if used wisely, the individual can reconnect with clarity, with breath, and with the present moment. It is in this space that one gains the upper hand over the day. Without it, the mind is like an untrained animal, reactive, scattered, and unfocused. But with stillness, it becomes a disciplined instrument of precision. Most people awaken and immediately subject themselves to distraction. The phone is the first interaction. Emails, headlines, messages from others. They begin their day reacting, not choosing. And the pattern continues throughout the day. More reactions, more impulses, more disconnection. What is lost in this process is not just time. It is sovereignty over the self. Morning stillness reclaims this sovereignty. It reminds us that before we engage with the world, we must first understand our own mental posture. The mind, like a garden, must be observed before it is cultivated. Are the thoughts scattered or centered? Are the emotions still lingering from yesterday's events? Without this self-check, we carry unresolved tension forward, unknowingly allowing it to influence everything: our decisions, our tone of voice, our clarity of thought. The power of stillness lies in this awareness. It is subtle, but it changes everything. This habit is deceptively simple. Sit, breathe, observe, that's all. Yet in this simplicity lies profound power. You are training the mind to obey, rather than dominate. You are telling your nervous system, we are not in danger, we are in control. Physiologically, the breath slows, cortisol levels drop. The body shifts from a reactive sympathetic state to a centered parasympathetic state, and once the body is calm, the mind becomes clearer. This clarity allows you to prioritize not just what you must do, but how you will do it. Instead of rushing into the day with anxiety or fear of falling behind, you begin with calm intention. What needs to be done today? What energy must I bring into my work, my interactions, my challenges? These questions cannot be answered while scrolling a screen or rushing to dress. They can only arise from stillness, and this is why it is powerful. Stillness is often misunderstood in our modern world. It is not laziness, it is not weakness, it is not the absence of progress. In fact, it is what enables progress to be intentional. A warrior does not charge into battle without surveying the field. A monk does not speak before settling the breath. Likewise, we must not begin our day without examining our internal state. When you begin each day with stillness, you build a relationship with yourself that is grounded in observation rather than reaction. You begin to notice patterns, certain thoughts that arise, certain resistances, certain energies that repeat. And with this awareness comes transformation. You cannot change what you do not observe, but once you see it clearly, without judgment, you can choose. And this is the essence of inner power. Morning stillness is not about doing nothing. It is about creating the space from which everything meaningful can emerge. When you wake up in the morning, you are standing at the threshold of a new day, a gate that opens only once. And yet most people rush through it blindly, without pausing to see where it leads. They carry yesterday's thoughts, unresolved frustrations, and unchecked distractions like baggage strapped to their backs. In this hurried state, the first actions of the day become automatic. The mind, like a river after a storm, is muddy, turbulent, and directionless. The world they enter is not new. It is simply a continuation of the old, recycled by habit. But clarity changes this. To begin from clarity is to take a step back from the river and observe it. It is to say, let me see where I am before I decide where to go. Clarity is not found in activity. It is found in stillness, in simplicity, in stepping into the moment fully, without the residue of yesterday or the projections of tomorrow. Chaos is not always loud or dramatic. Often it is subtle. It is the mental noise that begins before your feet even touch the floor. A to-do list playing on repeat. An unfinished conversation. A nagging sense of urgency. Many assume that if they simply do more, the chaos will subside. But speed does not cure disorder. It amplifies it. Imagine a carpenter trying to build a house with tools scattered, plans half-drawn, and hands shaking. No matter how skilled, his work will suffer. In the same way, if your inner world is disorganized, your outer actions will reflect that. Clarity, on the other hand, is a form of preparation. It is sharpening the tools before you begin to build. It is aligning the mind so that the body follows with precision. When you start from clarity, the smallest task is done with excellence. The conversation is more present. The decision is more thoughtful. Life feels less like a race and more like a deliberate journey. There is a Chinese proverb that says, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Similarly, the best time to find clarity is before the world interferes. That moment when you rise in the morning and everything is still is the second best time. In this moment you can sit, breathe, and simply listen. Not to music or podcasts or messages, but to yourself. What am I feeling right now? What do I actually need today? Mentally, physically, spiritually. Clarity begins with listening. Most people live disconnected from their own needs because they never ask the question. Instead, they act based on external expectations, trying to keep up with a rhythm that was never theirs to begin with. But when you create a space to listen, truly listen, you begin to live from a deeper place. Your actions stop being mechanical. They begin to arise from insight, from purpose, from conscious direction. Think of clarity as the sun rising over a foggy landscape. At first, everything seems hidden, distorted, uncertain. But as the light grows, so does understanding. You begin to see the path more clearly. You notice what is in front of you and what must be avoided. You recognize where you are, and you remember where you want to go. The mind, when bathed in this inner sunlight, becomes a guide rather than a burden. It stops pulling you in 10 directions and begins moving with you in one. And this is the true gift of starting the day from clarity. It simplifies everything. It reduces anxiety. It amplifies focus. It creates space for awareness to grow. From this space, your energy becomes more intentional, your time more respected, your results more meaningful. And slowly what once felt chaotic becomes ordered. Not because the world's changed, but because you did. There is a misconception in the modern world, a romanticization of motivation. We are constantly told to stay motivated, to find inspiration, to wait for the perfect moment when everything inside us feels ready. But motivation is fleeting. It rises and falls like the wind. One morning, you feel energized and invincible. The next, you feel heavy, uncertain, or unwilling. If your progress depends on how you feel, then you are not in control. Your emotions are. And this is the trap that many fall into. They wait to feel right before acting. But true growth does not wait for permission from emotion. It is built on the foundation of discipline, the quiet commitment to act regardless of how you feel. While motivation is external and emotional, discipline is internal and spiritual. It is a contract you make with yourself, renewed each morning when your body resists and your mind protests, but you act anyway. Consider the monk who wakes up before the sun every day, not because it feels good, not because the weather is ideal, but because it is part of his path. Discipline is a sacred practice. It is doing what you said you would do long after the mood has left. It is rising when it is still dark, and sitting in silence, not to check a box, but to cultivate mastery over the self. In martial arts, the warrior does not train only when he feels strong. He trains because discipline is his essence. When the student waits for motivation, his practice is inconsistent and weak. But when he embraces discipline, every day becomes an opportunity to grow, even the difficult ones, especially the difficult ones. Because in those moments when the body is tired and the mind is restless, you forge something deeper: resilience. And resilience, unlike motivation, endures. The problem with relying on motivation is that it is reactive. It is triggered by external forces, a video, a speech, a temporary high. It brings a surge of energy, yes, but it fades quickly. Discipline, in contrast, is proactive. It does not need fireworks or applause. It simply requires presence. The strongest individuals are not those who are constantly excited. They are those who remain steady in silence. They know that a stable mind and a consistent action are more powerful than any emotional spike. Discipline teaches you to show up, especially when it's inconvenient, because this is where transformation occurs. When you practice discipline, you stop chasing feelings and start creating structure. And within this structure, the results multiply, not instantly but inevitably. There is no greatness without repetition, and there is no repetition without discipline. A few days of intense effort may bring excitement, but a few years of consistent discipline brings mastery. People often say, "I don't feel like it today," but what they don't realize is that the feeling comes after the action, not before. When you act despite resistance, when you show up with commitment even when your mind is full of excuses, something changes inside you. You begin to develop trust in yourself. You stop living at the mercy of your mood and start leading yourself with principle. Discipline is not restrictive, it is liberating. Because when you are disciplined, you don't need to rely on temporary emotion to move forward. You move because you have chosen to live by something higher than comfort. And when others fall off their path because their motivation disappeared, you continue walking quietly, consistently, powerfully. This is the difference between those who wish for change and those who become the change. In the modern age, we are surrounded by more information, more options, and more distractions than ever before. Our attention is constantly pulled, not by force, but by design. Notifications, advertisements, social media, endless conversations, they fracture the mind into fragments, and in this fragmented state, it becomes nearly impossible to enter what the ancient practitioners and modern scientists alike refer to as flow, that elevated state of consciousness where time dissolves, distractions fade, and effort becomes effortless. Flow is not a luxury reserved for artists, athletes, or monks. It is accessible to everyone, but only to those who are willing to focus. Without focus, flow cannot exist. Focus is the gatekeeper. It is the ability to direct your mind to one thing fully, without interruption. And it is in that fullness that something deeper awakens, a sense of harmony between body, mind, and action. The mind is a powerful instrument, but it must be directed. If you do not choose what to focus on, the world will choose for you, and the world often chooses noise. Focus is the discipline of choosing one thing and devoting your full energy to it, even as the world demands your attention elsewhere. This is why many people feel exhausted, despite doing very little that is meaningful. Their attention is scattered across tasks, notifications, worries, and comparisons. They touch everything, but master nothing. Flow does not come from multitasking. It arises from single-minded attention, from immersion. In traditional martial arts training, the student does not try to learn 10 techniques at once. He learns one, he repeats it, he embodies it, and in that repetition, in that total presence, a flow begins to arise, a rhythm that connects breath, body, and intention. This is focus in motion, and it is where real transformation begins. Flow states are often described as spiritual, because in them the sense of ego temporarily dissolves. The inner critic goes quiet. Time no longer dominates. And what remains is pure presence, the feeling of being one with the task. Whether it is writing, training, speaking, or simply breathing, when the focus is undisturbed, a natural intelligence takes over. You stop thinking about how to do it, and you simply do it. This is not magic. It is the byproduct of cultivated focus, but here lies the paradox. Flow feels effortless, but the discipline of focus is anything but easy. It requires training. It requires saying no not just to others, but to the countless temptations inside your own mind. It requires creating boundaries around your time, your energy, and your attention. Only then can you give yourself the gift of depth. And in that depth you find progress without stress, creativity without force, and clarity without confusion. People often ask, how do I get more done? But this is not the right question. The real question is, how do I go deeper into what I'm doing? Because the depth of your attention determines the quality of your work, and the quality of your work determines the direction of your life. Focus is not about control. It is about alignment. Aligning your mind with your actions, aligning your energy with your purpose. When this alignment occurs, resistance disappears. You don't need to force yourself to work. You are drawn into the work. You don't need to chase success. It becomes a natural outcome of sustained attention. And this is the secret: when you cultivate focus, you unlock flow. And when you live in flow, you no longer ask if you're on the right path, because you feel it. Every step becomes meaningful. Every moment becomes a meditation. This is the power of focused living. The untrained mind is like a wild horse, powerful but unpredictable. It races from thought to thought, reacts without awareness, and often runs in circles, exhausting itself without ever arriving at a destination. Most people live their lives being led by this mind. They believe every thought that arises, obey every emotion that surfaces, and follow every urge without question. They do not lead their mind, they are led by it. But there is a higher way, a path walked by monks, warriors, artists, and all who seek mastery, the path of inner leadership. To lead the mind is to step into the role of the observer. It is to recognize that thoughts are not commands, they are suggestions. Emotions are not truths, they are signals. Cravings, fears, distractions, all of them appear, but you decide whether to follow. This shift from being pulled by the mind to guiding it is the first step toward true inner power. When you sit in silence each morning, even for just 10 minutes, you are practicing this leadership. You are saying, I will decide what we focus on today. I will decide what thoughts deserve my energy. At first, this may feel difficult, even frustrating. The mind will resist. It will wander, interrupt, seduce. But over time, like any student, it learns. And you, the one who watches, become stronger. You realize that you are not your thoughts, you are the one who observes them. This awareness creates space, and in that space you find choice. Do I need to react to this emotion? Do I need to believe this fear? Do I need to chase that distraction? The ability to pause, to evaluate, and to respond consciously, this is what it means to lead the mind. It does not require force, it requires presence. Calmness is not a weakness, it is command over your inner environment. In ancient Eastern philosophy, there is a teaching: the mind is a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. When the mind serves your highest values, clarity, wisdom, purpose, it becomes your greatest ally. But when left unchecked, it becomes a tyrant. It sabotages your goals, ruins your focus, and leads you into endless dissatisfaction. Many people try to control the external world, chasing productivity tools, rigid schedules, and external validation, but they never stop to ask the deeper question: who is steering the inner world? If the inner world is chaotic, no tool will bring peace. Leadership of the mind begins with awareness, but it deepens with intentionality. What kind of thoughts do I want to cultivate? What emotions do I want to strengthen? What beliefs serve me, and which ones enslave me? When you begin to ask these questions every morning, your mind starts to follow your direction, instead of dragging you toward its impulses. Leading the mind is not about perfection, it's about relationship. Like any relationship, it requires patience, consistency, and compassion. Some days the mind will be noisy, restless, critical, but leadership means showing up anyway. It means responding with presence, not punishment. Over time, the mind becomes more refined. Like a blade being sharpened, it becomes more effective, more precise. You no longer waste energy on distractions. You no longer believe every self-doubt. You no longer chase thoughts that go nowhere. Instead, your mind becomes your instrument, silent when needed, focused when necessary, and aligned with your deeper purpose. And once this happens, you are no longer a victim of your inner world. You are the architect. You choose what to build. And from that place of inner leadership, the outer world begins to reflect your clarity, strength, and peace. And so, my friend, as the day begins to unfold before you, ask yourself, will I walk into this day with awareness or with autopilot? You now understand the most powerful transformation does not come from adding more. It comes from removing noise and returning to clarity. You don't need a dozen habits, you need one practiced well. Sit in stillness. Breathe with intention. Act with awareness. Discipline the mind, not to suppress it, but to liberate it. Lead your thoughts instead of being led by them. Because in that quiet space, before the world awakens, you reclaim your energy, you reclaim your purpose, and slowly, quietly you reclaim yourself. Let others rush. Let others react. You move deliberately, from stillness into strength, from presence into power. This is the way. This is the discipline. This is the path.